Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. So I'd like to offer my greetings and welcome everyone this evening to another Saturday night Dhamma talk. So all of us have gathered here this evening to come together to meditate and to listen to Dhamma talks or listen to a Dhamma talk. So all of us have, listened to many Dhamma talks before. For most of us, it's not the first time. Um, and so obviously we see a lot of benefit and a lot of good that comes out of coming together and listening to Dhamma talks. But the Buddha actually really got into got into specifics. He really went into um, teaching his disciples about the benefits of listening to Dhamma and the benefits of or the proper ways to listen to Dhamma talks to get the most benefit. So at the time of the Buddha, none of the teachings were written down. It was all maintained through oral tradition. And so the monks would memorize certain texts and they'd memorize them as chants. So a lot of them do have, are a very chantable version. If it's in Pali, it's very chantable. So the only way to really get Dhamma was either by listening to a Dhamma talk or having a Dhamma conversation, asking questions and chatting about Dhamma. So the Buddha, he actually said there are 5 benefits of listening to a Dhamma talk. The first he said is um, one hears things that one hasn't heard before. So, you're getting new information. It's a great way to get new Dhamma, hear new teachings, hear these things you haven't heard before. And that's one of the really nice things about nowadays where it's the Dhamma is so easily accessible. A lot of people get a lot of their Dhamma online. So it's very easy to hear Dhamma from several different teachers, and and different teachers will emphasize certain things. So it's very easy to hear new teachings or new interpretations of teachings that we haven't heard before. The second benefit the Buddha talked about is that it clarifies things we've heard before. So sometimes we hear a teaching and we understand it, or we kind of understand it, or even sometimes we don't really understand it, and then all of a sudden we hear someone talking about it, and again it's they talk about it maybe from a slightly different angle, or maybe our mind's just a little more ready, and it seems to we hear it and it just it feels like it's really like sinks in, and you're just like, okay, I understand that now. Okay, I'd heard it, I kind of understood it or didn't understand it, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I get it. That's how it is. Um, and the third benefit the Buddha said was one gets rid of doubts. So for a lot of people, doubts can be a big problem. So, for some people, they hear something once and, it's not enough. A little later on, they'll be doubting, did I hear that right? Did I understand that right? So, hearing Dhamma again and again, it can overcome these doubts. Um, and so you'll hear a lot of people, will do certain things several times just to really make sure they understand it. So when I was a layman and just started meditating and went and did my first meditation retreat, it was an absolute beginner's retreat at Ajahn Sona's, and that was what's called the absolute beginner's retreat. And I did 2 or 3 of them just because I want to really make sure I got it right, really make sure I understood it purposely. I mean, staying at Ajahn Sona's monastery was great. So there's the benefit of that too. But it was, to really get rid of those doubts about that. But also, sometimes we have doubts about um, not just about stuff we've heard before, but certain doubts about certain concepts of Dhamma or about things. And then we hear someone teaching Dhamma, we hear a Dhamma talk, and it's like, okay, yeah, that cleared that up. I don't have a doubt about that anymore. So this is another one of the benefits, is it gets rid of doubt. Um, the fourth benefit is one's views are made straight. So, sometimes we can have, all these different ideas, sometimes, good ideas, sometimes not good ideas. But, just listening to Dhamma, it kind of straightens that out. We keep hearing it. So, our mind keeps getting kind of in sync with Dhamma. And, it's kind of like keeping our mind in the game. So, it's very easy, um, you read a Dhamma book or you listen to a Dhamma talk, and you just really feel, or you do a retreat or something, you feel very inspired. And Dhamma is a lot of just the importance of it, and you're just thinking about Dhamma. But then you don't listen to anything for a while, and your mind just starts to drift off, and it starts to take go into the world, think of other things, have other, and you kind of forget about Dhamma. There's this a very well-known teacher in Thailand named Lumpur Suchat, and he speaks perfect English. And he had ordained or he had stayed at Lungta Mahapua's monastery, which was called Wat Pa Ban Tad. So this was this super strict like practice monastery. And it's like you go there and you have to meditate just heaps and heaps. And it's this real practice, practice, practice. But Lumpur Suchat was once telling me that when he was there, he would study suttas for about an hour a day. And this was just to keep his mind on track, to keep his mind in the Dhamma. And so for us, we'll find that we're all different and stuff, but we need, different amounts of kind of Dhamma input or Dhamma conversation, just to kind of keep our minds on Dhamma, keep our minds on our practice, and not forget about it. So that was the fourth of the benefits, is that it makes our views straight. And the fifth benefit is one's mind grows serene. So, this is one of the things you see a lot of people when they listen to Dhamma talks. They're actually like sitting meditating, sometimes eyes closed. And the Dhamma talk almost can become a bit like a guided meditation. And some of the teachers, they're really good at this. They've got this really peaceful, calm voice, and it really feels like it's like a guided meditation. And so sometimes when you're sitting, you just grow really peaceful and really quiet. And so there was this Welsh monk from Lungta Mahabua's monastery named Lumpur Panyawado, and he would translate they had some Western monks there, and he would translate for them. And sometimes he would before they could learn how to speak Thai. And so sometimes he would just forget some of the stuff. His mind had become peaceful, so he didn't hear everything which was said in the Dhamma talk. But also, one of the things I find is that when I am getting regular Dhamma input, like, reading some every day or listening to Dhamma talks regularly, I find just overall my mind just seems more peaceful. The Dhamma seems to, hearing this seems to have an effect on me. And I think a lot of people, are the same with that just getting that some Dhamma input every day, is beneficial. It's one of the things Lungta Mahabua had said, that um, when we're listening to Dhamma talk, he was saying that the Dhamma from the outside, it comes in and it mixes with the Dhamma inside. So sometimes some of the changes and what we're absorbing from it, a lot of times is on the cognitive level, like our understanding has grown, but sometimes it's almost more on a more subtle than that, like it's coming in and it's soaking in and it's affecting us. So Ajahn Jayasaro, he likes to tell this story, and he made a book of some of his little teaching stories, and it was of this young man, and it's in Thailand, and he has his grandmother, and his grandmother goes to the monastery, every week to do the what we call one pra, like the weekly kind of practice day, and she'd stay and practice in the monastery day and night, and she'd listen to all the Dhamma talks. And one day she came back home, and her grandson was like, "Oh well, what was the Dhamma talk about today? What did the Ajahn talk about?" And she's like, "Yeah, I don't remember." And he's like, "Oh, you've been going to the monastery, and you don't remember uh what was the point of going?" So she tells him to take a basket, like a woven bamboo basket, and tells him to go to the stream and fill it up with water. And he starts to try to argue because, a basket doesn't hold water. And she's like, "No, no, go do it, go do it." So he goes down to the stream and he starts trying and trying again and again to fill this basket up with water. And finally, after a while, he gives up on it, and he comes back to her, and he gives her the basket. And she said, "Did you get any water in it?" He said, "No, I couldn't get any at all. It didn't hold any." And she's like, "No, no, look closer. It's absolutely soaked and saturated with water. The wood had soaked up or bamboo had soaked up all the water and was saturated." And she said, "I'm like that after going to the monastery. I just feel saturated with Dhamma." And so this is the fifth of the benefits of listening to a Dhamma talk. And but the Buddha also taught us how to listen to a Dhamma talk to get the most benefit from it. Because you can have times when you're sitting there, you're present, but your mind is completely somewhere else, and you realize the talk is completely over, and you didn't pay attention to any of it. So the Buddha gave us another list of 5 things. Um, he first started off with 5 like qualities of mind that if you have them, you're not going to benefit from listening to a Dhamma talk. And the first one was one holds the talk in contempt. So this is really interesting because sometimes we can really do this. We can just have this bias or contempt against the talk. And, once we have that kind of attitude towards it, our mind really shuts down and we don't really absorb what's going on. We can, either not be paying attention to it or be very critical of it. So sometimes it might be, the talk is on a subject we don't really like, or it's a subject we've heard before, or we think we've heard about before, or it could even be sometimes if you're listening to the Dhamma talk, and especially for monks, because when they're having in the monastery, we have to sit there. We don't have the option of coming and going, or we don't have the option of skipping the Dhamma talk. We have to be there, and we have to sit through the whole thing. So sometimes if you're kind of sore, you're kind of your knees are a little sore, your back's a little sore, or you're maybe like really tired, and inside you're just complaining, "Oh, the Ajahns just going on and on. When's he gonna end? When is this gonna end? I really don't want to be here. I want to get off to bed." And when you have that kind of that mind state, that kind of contempt in there, you're not really absorbing it. It's not going to penetrate into you, or you're just not going to care so much about what's being said. And the next one the Buddha said to mind state to avoid having is when one holds the speaker in contempt. So this can really happen to us too. If someone is giving the Dhamma talk, and it's because a lot of times we can have these inner biases, and we can be like, "Oh well, I don't think he's enlightened. He's giving this Dhamma talk, but I don't think he's enlightened. So whatever, he doesn't know what he's talking about." Or or this person, maybe they haven't been a monk that long, they don't know what they're talking about, or that person, they're not even a monk. What am I doing listening to them? And when you have this contempt, again, your mind shuts down and you're not really able to listen to what they're saying or absorb what they're saying, even though a lot of times, um, even if the person, isn't enlightened, or we don't feel that they have the same knowledge as someone else does, sometimes they can really give a really interesting personal perspective on it. Or, maybe they've had to go through a personal struggle that someone else hasn't. So they're able to articulate that and explain it in a different way. Or maybe they've just heard a lot of Dhamma talks before, and can repeat a lot of really great information they've heard before. So you want to, when someone's teaching, someone's giving a talk, you always want to have your mind open to them and their perspective and what they're saying, because again, they sometimes do have that really little clever thing, um, and maybe they've dealt with the same difficulties you have. So that was the second one. The third one is one holds oneself in contempt. And this one, again, this one, I think sometimes Westerners, we can really fall into that, this low self esteem or being really self critical. So, it might be like, the person giving the Dhamma talk is talking about like meditation or getting deep into meditation, or, and we're just really hard on ourselves. Oh, I can't meditate like that. I'm no good. I'll never get to that level. What's the point of me even listening? And you get so hard on yourself that you just aren't open to the possibility that you can do this, and so it's going to you're not really going to listen. Or it can be something like if the talk is on sila, on our morality, on our behavior by body and speech. If maybe our sila hasn't been so good, they start giving a talk on it and we just start shutting down, like, oh, I'm terrible, I'm not, my sila's not good, I told a lie this week, or I killed some mosquitoes this week, or something like that. And you start getting really hard on yourself, and then you stop hearing what they're talking about and what they're saying, or it's not really sinking in. And the fourth one, the next one, is listening to a Dhamma talk with a scattered mind, and a mind that isn't gathered together and gathered into concentration and peacefulness. And so this is one of the reasons why when we get together, we do this little meditation beforehand, because it really calms our mind down and gets our mind more peaceful, one pointed, so that we're able to hear it without inner distractions. Because you know how it is, if you try to do something, try to concentrate on something, pay attention to something, and your mind's going a mile a minute, you're just completely distracted. You're hearing a lot of times a very small percentage of what the person is saying. You hear them start talking about something, and then you're thinking about five different things, and then 5 minutes later you hear them say something else, and you just really don't absorb what it is. It'd be the same. It's like if you're trying to pay attention to someone talking to you, and there's a lot of people around you talking loudly and distracting you, but instead of those people talking loudly um, externally around you, it's almost like inside of your own mind you have other people talking loudly and distracting you, just your own mind doing it. So if we really want to be able to absorb the Dhamma, pay attention, remember it, have it sink in, it's good to have a mind that is peaceful and a little more one pointed. um, so the next one is the one attends inappropriately. So I interpret this one to mean, because I've never heard a really great explanation of this. I interpret this one to mean like kind of like you're paying attention to the wrong points in it. You're focusing on um not really the important Dhamma points on it. You might be focusing on other little points on it, like I know I've told this story before, but I knew this monk, and he was a Western monk, and he was living with this really really respected Ajahn in Thailand, and this Ajahn would always misquote something. He'd misquote some this little piece from the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So instead of in the sutta, it was Anya Kondanya, realize something, but when the Ajahn would say it, he'd said the Buddha said this. And this monk would listen to this, and after the talk, he runs up to the Ajahn and he's like, Ajahn, you're actually wrong there. Actually, Anya Kondanya, he realized that the Buddha didn't actually say it. And apparently, this Ajahn just sat there, didn't say a word, and just looked at this monk. And the monk was telling me, he's like, he looked at me as if I was the dumbest person who's ever lived. Because again, he was attending inappropriately. He wasn't actually paying attention to what the talk was about. He wasn't getting the benefit of the talk. He was just looking for that one little thing so he could go up and kind of show off and show that he knows his suttas so well to the Ajahn, and so he didn't really get the benefit of the talk. And so so those are the five things to avoid when listening to a Dhamma talk, or if you have those, because those mind states will stop you from really getting the maximum benefit out of it. And then the Buddha goes on to explain like the five qualities to have. And so these are just the exact opposites of those. So it's like not holding the talk in contempt, not holding the speaker in contempt, not holding oneself in contempt, having a mind that is unscattered and focused, and then attending appropriately. So Lumpur Cha, he had this really beautiful quote about listening to Dhamma talks. He said, listen to the teachings with your heart, not with your ears. So it's about really, paying attention, absorbing it. And so it was really, really beautiful. Lumpur Cha always had these really nice teachings on all these different things. Or another Ajahn who gave a really great teaching on it was when I was a novice at Dowdom. There was this German Ajahn, and he has a monastery in German now, Ajahn Chatamalo. And he told us, when you listen to Dhamma talks, sometimes, there's just certain teachings or certain parts of it seem to stick. And he said, and they seem to be the ones you remember. And he compared it to, it's like, so over time, he said it's like collecting little pearls and keeping them in a bag. So you remember these different little teachings, and you can carry them with you as you go. So I would like to offer this as a bit of reflection for everyone this evening, and I hope we can all benefit from this, and I hope everyone's success in their practice.